Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 133. We have a very special decode to get into today. I have a couple key dates that I cannot wait to share. But before we get into that, I hope you all had an amazing weekend so far. We did have the solar eclipse yesterday while crypto trades alone. So we do need to talk about the traditional markets and the setup moving into this upcoming week, as well as I'll be going over gold and silver precious metals, as gold has become part of my investment thesis. And we had a couple calls that we made earlier this month with some correction targets that were 100% accurate. And as of Friday's weekly close, a big buyback on gold, right back to where we were trading at earlier in the month. So big week we're moving into with a little bit of a sell-off on the NASDAQ. It's showing some signs of weakness after the lower high. I have so much to get into today's video. So before we do that, get comfortable, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's the morning time, or a glass of wine or beer or any beverage of your choice if it's the night. Get mellow, comfortable, and grab a notepad because you're going to want to be taking notes today. So before we jump into this, quick update. As shared in my last post over on Patreon in the Discord, yesterday I sold off a large chunk of altcoins, including Zilliqa, Theta Token, T-Fuel, VeChain, and Vita. And this was intentionally to take a loss on those plays during this year of 2023 to offset my tax liability. This strategy is called tax loss harvesting. And remember, I am a U.S. citizen, so I have U.S. tax laws. And regarding crypto being an asset under the branch of capital gains whenever there is crypto being sold for fiat. So this might not be necessarily important for you if you live in another country that does not have similar tax laws, but I'm just sharing this information because it could be helpful for the community in any way, shape, or form. And if you're somebody who's not in the US, or even if you are and you're a little bit confused about some of this stuff, please go into our Discord community. Make sure to ask the questions. We have a dedicated text channel for that called Crypto Help, and our community is amazing. We are more than willing to help. And also, if you've yet to get access to the Discord, just go ahead and send me a direct message on Patreon with your Discord username and the last four numbers after your username, and I will reply back in a Patreon direct message to you. This will be the only way that I could get you onboarded into our Discord, so please do not comment in this video or email me or any of that stuff. The only way I could help you out is if you send me a direct message on Patreon with your Discord username. Okay? So anyways, ask the community, be curious, speak curious, and we are more than willing to help if some of this stuff is a little bit confusing. But essentially, I will break down some of the theory around this, and you're more than welcome to pause the video really quickly, go to Google, and just type in tax loss harvesting. All right, so the intent behind this was to balance out the capital gains I'd be paying on the XRP profits I took this year, which has an average entry around 36 cents on XRP and a gain of about 140% after de-risking on the short-term play. So that's short-term capital gains. But considering I have an initial entry on XRP as low as 25 cents in my long-term portfolio, and because keeping track of all of this is an absolute headache, especially for how busy I am, and no matter how good the APIs are connecting to crypto tax software, there's always problems with this stuff. It's very difficult unless you go into it and meticulously make sure. But needless to say, it just made sense for me to implement this tax loss harvesting strategy this year. And in my situation, for my cash flow that I have, business, and everything else that's moving around. So with those alts that I sold, I intend to balance out my portfolio around 45% Bitcoin, about 30% between XRP and Ethereum, so maybe 15% each or so, and the rest being a venture capital bag that will give me, a balance in that regard, and to have a opportunity for some of these bigger ROI plays that we tend to see in the more speculative alts. But I will give more energy to the venture capital bag in 2024 and perhaps scoop up some heavily discounted crypto during the end of this year as well if needed. Of course, this depends on the charts, my overall investment thesis, and ultimately me just being patient and letting this market come to me, which is really the way Chief Wolf operates in this market. I don't get stressed. I don't get worried. I don't have any anxiety. Don't let my emotions get into the way. I am very conservative with a lot of this stuff, and I try to develop strategies that are holistic and, again, are built around me keeping peace of mind. This asset class is already so volatile and just so emotional that I needed to craft an environment for myself so that I could stay profitable, I could stay winning, and I don't get lost in the sauce. So with all of that being said, I also will be positioning myself in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP sooner than later. And this way I could just be in a good position for the next cycle regarding long-term capital gains holding for 1 year and 1 day, assuming the crypto bull run continues as far as January 2025. But don't let that stress anyone out. You have plenty of time to accumulate. There's no need to rush this process, and I will continue to accumulate into early 2024 and won't let this concept of short-term or long-term capital gains disrupt my investment thesis. That's just something to consider, of course, because if you happen to live in the USA or in a country with similar crypto tax laws as the USA, then it helps to know about capital gains, taxes, etc. So, and of course, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just being transparent with you all and letting you know exactly what I am doing to provide you with the most value here in the community. And I will continue to keep you updated every step of the way. Lastly, before we get into today's decode, I sent out another update today regarding a Bitcoin investment I made, which kind of just is follow-up from what I just mentioned moments ago about positioning myself in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP heavily now, sooner than later. And the whole idea about this is based off of the Bitcoin analysis I'll be sharing with you later in today's podcast. Essentially, it's just a follow-up of info I shared already regarding how Bitcoin acts during this phase of the solar cycle that we're in. So I'll be covering that in depth later in today's podcast very thoroughly. But that's making me want to take action now, sooner than later, even if we were to get a little dip in Bitcoin. And one other thing to mention, and I hope that I'm reminded of this as we get a little deeper in today's podcast and start to cover the charts of the traditional markets, it's pretty obvious to me that gold, let's just say precious metals, Bitcoin, and the stock market are all decoupled right now. None of them are really following each other. We just watched a pretty noticeable sell-off in the indices into the weekly close, but we saw a huge pump in gold into the weekly close. We also saw a little bit of a correction in Bitcoin, but we're stable in crypto right now, and we haven't had as much of a buyback energy this year as we saw in the indices. So just to quickly recap for anyone that's waiting around for something to happen, any bigger corrections at this time are more likely in the stock market than in crypto. We've talked about this so many times, but it's just for newer people in the community. If you're waiting around for some sort of miracle crash, just know that it would be more likely affecting the indices and tech stocks than it would be crypto, specifically because we did not have as much of a buyback in the crypto market that we did in the traditional markets, as well as we have a lot of altcoins still sitting at yearly lows where they have 90 to 97, some at 99% losses from prior all-time highs. So you just can't anticipate much more of a correction because on those plays, it's just retail left. There's really no big money because crypto isn't sexy right now. It only gets sexy when we move into bullish energy. So we know that we have a Bitcoin ETF coming very soon. Bitcoin is probably about to get a little sexier than it was, but that doesn't mean it's the same story for the altcoins. And it's pretty obvious, even after we had XRP get some clarity with the SEC case, we only saw it pop up for a little bit. Now it's right back down below 50 cents. Okay, so this is the method to my madness. I'm looking at the charts, I'm looking at the esoteric, I'm combining it all together, and there's going to be a lot of patterns revealed through this work. And I hope that everything is clear and not too complicated. But if it ever is, again, ask the community. That's the beauty of what we're doing here. Feel free to just share your ideas, thoughts, concepts, and ask questions. We're more than willing to help you here, and I'm going out of my way to provide the best value and the most information I possibly can packed into these videos. So let's recap the last podcast. We thoroughly decoded the recent Black Swan event that happened in Israel, and I found another gem tied to all of this. It's another connection to the number 96 and 69 that we've been talking about all year. That's been a very important number in our decode, specifically since the Black Swan event that happened on March 10th with Silicon Valley Bank on the 69th day of this year. So again, I know we talk about this a lot, but just to show you, Friday, March 10th, 69th day of the year, Silicon Valley Bank goes down, and that was a Black Swan event isolated to retail banks, and pretty important to take note of, especially when we've seen this 69 and 96 code coming up so much since we were in the year of the Shemitah back in 2021. We're going to break down everything in today's video, but if some of the stuff is a little bit confusing or new to you, please check out the last podcast I released, because it did a very good job at thoroughly wrapping up everything that we're going to be talking about in this a little more advanced decode today. But as always, I try to bring utility to these decodes, simplify it the best I can, and feel free to ask questions if needed. So we already are aware that October 23rd, which is coming up soon, is the day leaving 69 days in the year. So definitely mark that date down. You can see Silicon Valley Bank, 69th day, 296 days left in the year, and then October 23rd is the mirror of that. 296th day of the year, 69 days left in the year. So just write that note down. It's important. We're going to break down a little bit more significance to this code. So when we connect these two dates together, this gives us 227 days, and 227 is very important because it's the 49th prime number. Now, you guys know this number 49 was so important over the last year, 2 years, because we were moving into the year of the Jubilee. So 49 is 7 squared, 7 times 7, or 7 sevens. This is tied to biblical Jubilee, which is the year we were just in. So we have 7 cycles of 7 Shemitah years. That's 49 years. And on the 50th year, you have Jubilee. Just like 50 years after the Yom Kippur War, we had this Black Swan event in Israel just last week. So consider this. 227 is very esoteric in that regard, tying it back to 49, 49th prime, 7 7, 7 squared. So from the war starting in Israel on October 7th last weekend, we're going to show you how these two dates are combined. And you take that to the date that we discovered, the day leaving 69 days left in the year. Well, we have 2 weeks and 2 days. That's the 22 code, Master Builder, Master Destroyer. This is just a quick side note for you all. Getting back to the number 69 that we were talking about and this key date that I wanted to share with you all, we know that yesterday was the solar eclipse. The stock market was closed since it was a weekend, and tomorrow it'll be opening up into this energy, this post-solar eclipse energy, but we're still in eclipse season because you want to consider from the solar eclipse to the lunar eclipse, which is later this month. So we're in eclipse season, everyone. And of course, we'll be covering that later when we move into the charts of the major indices. But this term eclipse in gematria equaling 69. Oops, sorry. You could see that right there. So eclipse adds up to 69, and this made me think of the number 347. Really esoteric number, but it's important because 347 is your 69th prime number. And I would like us to now go to the 347th day of the year, and you're going to see how this is all going to unfold. So that's going to be the 13th of December, 347th day of this year. Now, note how this has the day before the 69 date numerology. That's December 14th. All right. So if we connect December 14th, including the end date, to the day that this Black Swan event just happened in Israel on the 7th of October, that's 69 days apart. 69 days leading into the 69 date numerology, which is the day after the 347th day that adds to the 69th prime number. I find this to be pretty damn important. And if we're looking at the moon cycles, we know that that will be the new moon right there around the new moon of December, right? So, so much already. We have so much more to share. But remember how in the last decode, I kept bringing up the number 68 and bringing up the number 86, since the day Israel formed was on an 86 date numerology. The Yom Kippur War was on October 6th. Oct is octagon, 8. Like we've talked about many times, this is Gregorian calendar completely manipulating everyone into thinking that this stands for 10, but it really stands for 8. All right, so this should truly be the 8-6 date. On the 8-6 date, we have a ritual tied to Israel. Israel was formed on an 8-6 date. So if you're thinking about how coded in this all is, it's not just looking at the Gregorian dates, it's about decoding it and then looking in comparison to the Hebrew calendar. So I don't want to get too advanced here, but October 6th also happens to be the day, leaving 86 days left in the year. Somebody made a comment in the last video. They were talking about when you get 86, do you get taken out or taken down? And I was like, whoa, yeah, I totally forgot about that. But I love those little exoteric things in pop culture to share in the decodes, because it is true. It's like we have heard that term many times. I even remember working in some food and beverage jobs, and when we would run out of something, we would say it's 86th. So let's get back to December 13th. This year, it's a 68 date numerology, and the mirror of 86, this connects the dots on another big date to consider, which is leading up into Saturnalia, but this could be a big date for this current war that's happening. All right. I just want you to consider that. 68 connection, 347 is the following number. Technically, the 69th prime. You see how this is all coded together. Well, also, if we take December 13th this year, it also ties perfectly to September 16th, which is, this is the day of Rosh Hashanah. All right. And you can see right here, we also had that being a 68 date numerology. So now having this war thing occur just shows me the importance of this number 68 and 86 specifically to anything tied with Israel. So that's it, family. You need to take note of that 6886 code for Israel. It just keeps popping up. You can't deny the significance when you see that many connections. So let's get back to some of these ideas, but I just wanted to share that since we discovered the start of this war in Israel, it'll continue to be important for us as decoders to consider this for future decodes, this 8668 code. Alrighty, on another connection that I remembered, and I'm really happy that I remembered this, it was a connection to a day that I discovered tied to Trump's arrest. So remember I did a Trump arrest decode back when that happened. It was about Georgia, and we were talking about the Ray Charles song Georgia on My Mind, and that Elberton, Georgia, where we had the Georgia Guidestones, and we had that ritual happen during the Shemitah year, same year the Queen died. There's a lot that happened in 2021 leading into 2022, the Jubilee year. So I would love for some of you, if you can, to just go back to that decode if you don't remember it. That was regarding Trump. And look at how this is all connected. So I just want to show you, it was August 24th, and it was tied to this day. The war started by 44 days. This is going to get wild, family. Again, go back to the decode I released on Trump's arrest, and you'll see around that time, several decodes I was focusing on the number 44, the 44 code. And it was also tied to Twitter becoming X Corp, because this is the 24th day. 24 is 2 4s. So when we think of 24, we also think of 44, or 2 4s, 4 4. And we know that X is the 24th letter in the alphabet. Elon acquired Twitter for $44 billion. Trump got arrested on the 24th day, on a Thursday, the day of Jupiter. The Jupiter zodiac logo is the number 24. 24 again is 2 4s, and 44 days after Trump's arrest, we have the bombing of Israel, which starts this war. And Trump was arrested on the day having 75 date numerology, and Israel was formed 75 years ago as we film today's podcast. Also, if we take 44 days after the day the war started, this is crazy. This is going to be November 20th. That's Joe Biden's birthday. So 44 days before Israel went to war, Donald Trump gets arrested. And 44 days after is Joe Biden's birthday. This is like a movie script. Now, think about how the 44th president was Barack Obama. Joe Biden was his vice president. Let me show you by the code. So Barack Obama gives you 68. This is the number that is literally coded into the Yom Kippur War when Israel was formed. On the day of the war starting leaves 86 days in the year, all tied to this 6886 code that we were talking about moments ago. You could go even deeper. So the name Obama giving you 15 in the same cipher as Israel, giving you 15. Also, the day Israel went to war on October 7th, this day is a 15 standard date numerology, and we know these presidents are coded into all of this. So remember in my last video, I spoke about the number 121 being 11 squared, or 11 11s. You see 1111 quite often on the clock. 1111 is 4 1s. That's 1111. 4. And we know 44 days after Trump's arrest, we had the Black Swan event in Israel, which is 44 days before Joe Biden's birthday. And they're each other's adversary, like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage. It's a classic world stage WWF match that the masses pour their prana into. You got to love the bread and circus here. So are they telling us something? That's what I want to know. Perhaps it's about the 44th week of this year. And I brought this up already in a past Red Pill podcast, but the fact that I just made this connection today between Trump's arrest and Biden's birthday, 44 days in each direction, like a perfect ripple effect, well, then that tells me we need to consider the 44th week of this year, which is between October 30th and November 5th. This is crucial. So we have on the 1st of November, during the 44th week, will be when the Federal Reserve FOMC meeting happens during this week, and it's Halloween, Samhain. Moments ago, we spoke about the number 24 and how that can be spoken out to reveal 2 4s or 44. But more importantly, we're now in the Hebrew year that ties into all of this. 5,784. It's important to consider Hebrew because this is all going back to Zionism. Remember, it's Israel at war right now. This is crucial. This proves so many things we've been talking about, especially with the fact that we were calling for a black swan after Jubilee and before the solar eclipse. It couldn't have been more perfect when that war started, based on the date, based on the code. So this 24 is crucial. We're in the Hebrew year currently that adds up to 24. We're moving into the Gregorian year of 2024. It's the year of the X, the 24th letter in the alphabet. Now, if we take from Halloween, this will be the 31st, and connect it to the start of this Israeli war. Let me change this really quickly. So we have Halloween, and we have the day that this war started, and we could see they are 24 days apart. We've been talking about the 44th week of the year for a while now here, and we're getting very close to this time frame. From today until this is about 2 weeks away. Also, note that Halloween this year falls on a Tuesday. It falls on Martes. So Martes, the day of Mars, or Ares, considered the god of war. And we now have the War of Zion happening as we speak. Since we spoke about the number 24 and the significance of it, if we mirror the number 24, we get the number 42. And that is war. 42. During this time, we'd also be in tropical Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars. Now get ready for this. Scorpio gives you 9541, just like Halloween gives you 9541, which matches exactly to Ethereum, which is 9541 in the same cipher. And Scorpio is a water sign. This is tied back to, remember 95, it's tied back to Neptune, god of the seas. It is called cryptocurrency, water symbolism, Neptunian symbolism. Remember that Satoshi's birthday lands on the 95th day of the year. That's April 5th, 95th day of the year. That's for a reason. And to really blow your minds, the element on the periodic table that's tied into all of this that has the atomic mass of 95 is molybdenum. And let me just show you that really quickly, because it's the 42nd element on the periodic table. So we are talking about all these 95s tied to the word Scorpio, Halloween, Ethereum, Neptune. The periodic table, 42nd element, 95 atomic mass. It's tied perfectly into this. 42, just like we were talking about with war. 42. And notice how this is all showing itself to make a lot more sense than before. And this is so crucial for today's decode, because if we take from this Halloween time frame, considering Samhain goes into November 1st, the day of the next FOMC meeting, this date of November 1st is tied to the date we spoke about earlier of December 13th. And let me show you how. So we have the 111 date of this year, and we have this tied to December 13th by 42 days. Just like we were talking about the 42nd element tied to all of this, and just like war is 42. So you see how we're using this code now to determine what could be happening next. So will there be a Halloween ritual, a Samhain ritual this year into November 1st, the Gregorian 111 date, during the 44th week of the year? This wouldn't shock me, because October 30th, you can see 303rd day of the year, got that 33. But look at how this is all connected. This is the start of the 44th week of the year, and it's connected to December 13th by 44 days. I see the 44th week having so many connections to this point that you just cannot deny it. Now, let's connect this date, which is the 303rd day of the year, to the day Silicon Valley Bank failed on March 10th, and that's 33 weeks and 3 days, the 333 code. And both dates have an 11 master number as their date numerology. Now, we can see from the first day of the 44th week of the year, remember I showed you a moment ago, it's 44 days before December 13th. This is the key date I found that I exposed to all of you far in advance, so you must write this date down. It's crucial. It's around the December new moon. We'll be out of eclipse season by then. And this is all during the time frame of sidereal Libra, the scales. And let me just quickly go to Libra, see if we got any more code, and there you go. Just like war equals 42, you have Libra equals 42. This is massive for this year. So clearly the scales are getting balanced, and we're here decoding how the market scales will be balanced. Okay, I have just one more gem. because we do got to move on. But the last gem to share regarding this upcoming 44th week of the year and this date, October 30th, into the Halloween ritual, Samhain, Dia de los Muertos, what else? All Saints Day. It goes by so many names. You've heard them all. Well, with this date, there's one more huge connection, and this goes back to the 11th of 2020. This was the date that the WHO declared the pandemic, the C-19 pandemic. And if you include the end date, you could see they are 3 years, 33 weeks, and 3 days apart. And if you don't include the end date, this is perfectly tied the same amount of days, 3 years, 33 weeks, and 3 days, to the day of Halloween. I just want you to think about this because we're seeing a lot of 33 code. And let me show you by the Gematria code. All Saints Day gives you 137. That's your 33rd prime number. Then you have also it being called All Souls Day, which gives you the 33 in full reduction. We know that we're still in the Gregorian year. That gives us the skull and bones numbers, the 223. Skull and bones symbolism tied back to death. This is very much the essence of this day called Halloween. So this was pretty much a full comprehensive decode on Halloween without going through the things that people typically talk about, and then showing you how it's coded in some of these big events, such as the failure of Silicon Valley Bank this year, as well as the start of the day that changed all of our lives around the world, which is the C-19 pandemic. 3 years, 33 weeks, 3 days apart, all into this time frame. On Halloween, which lands on a Tuesday, day of Mars, god of war. We're at war right now. Also, we're in a spiritual war right now. You probably all know about this. So let's just consider if we were to think about this 42 code really quickly and go backwards and see around the time frame. You see 42 months after this event happened, C-19 pandemic started, we are moving through Rosh Hashanah, which ended the Jubilee. The day the Jubilee ended effectively was on a 24-date numerology. Again, moving into the Hebrew year of 5784. Giving you 24. The Jubilee was over then into this sundown. 6-9 code. 6-9 day of this year, we had Silicon Valley Bank fail. We're moving into the date that will have 69 days left in the year. Okay? Please consider this, family. This is why I shared, and this wasn't a joke, this wasn't clickbait. I shared earlier in the month that this was the most important month. It needed to be, because of all this code surrounded into this solar eclipse that we just had, which is the start of the Great American Eclipse between yesterday and April 8th of 2024, which I will be releasing a decode on, of course, later in the year, probably at the beginning of 2024. But these couple of dates are absolutely mind-blowing. So again, we had the date of October 23rd, write that day down, and then we have this transition between the 30th into November 1st around Halloween, and then we had the key date of the 13th of December, which I'm giving you far in advance. You can just consider that the new moon of December, and we have some really important inflection points to consider. Okay, so this is the perfect time to move into the charts, do some technical analysis. We're going to start with gold today, and then we're going to get into some of these other more experimental charts. Of course, we're going to go over the indices as well as Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP. We also have Kronos, ELF, and Near Protocol. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing ELF coin properly, but that's one of the coins we're going to go over. So let's get into gold really quickly. And then I have a little bit of a decode as well to share with Bitcoin that I think you guys are going to absolutely love. So, okay, remember in a post that I made about gold, I told you that I was accumulating between 830 and 810, and the lowest price we saw gold go to was 1,810.58. Sorry, I said 810 before, but you know what I mean. I shared that that was my accumulation range, which was right above this green line. And the idea here was just holding structure and not making lower lows from this target over there. And it's mind-blowing that I was able to get these accumulations in pretty much at one of the best price targets out of the range. And then we just went straight line up after that. Mind-blowing stuff. So I want us to consider what just happened with gold, because as it was selling off from September 25th all the way to October 5th, that was not the essence that we were seeing in the stock market, really. And now that we've seen this big 3.4% green candle on gold, and we see on the NASDAQ chart a rejection at this level, and don't worry, we're going to talk about this chart in a minute, it's a sign to me that this stuff is all decoupling. It's all like in its own world right now. So we're going to go over a couple of these trend lines. We're going to go over this punch down below the 0.5 fib and what I'm expecting next. So this fib is taken from this level here around the yearly or all-time high. We have a triple top. We have this larger correction, which so far was perfectly into the end of the Shemitah year. So I do not think we're going to go lower than that at all. That's the lowest low. This was your secondary low. And then this was a gift from the gods. This punch down to 1810 that we got because of that V-shaped recovery specifically. And it wouldn't shock me if we slow down a little bit here and do like a short-term reverse head and shoulders, like something like that. I'll give you a quick example of what I'm talking about. So we have here left shoulder, head, and then potentially right shoulder, and then breaking this neckline here at the 786 would be all systems go to oblivion. We are considering this 786 moving forward as a very key trigger point for continuation to the upside. And of course, you don't really see gold trading much higher than 2,000. Once it gets above $2,040, it's just wicks and big rejections. So I would love to see more structural candles above those levels and building some support around 2,070, 2,050. But we need to wait till we get there, of course. We're about $100 away. Okay, so I want us to consider that this buyback was a little too fast, and it wouldn't shock me if we were to start treating this trend line right here as a backtest zone. So perhaps we make it up to about 1950 and then come back down, something weird like this, and it could have that essence. All right, let me pull up some of our moving averages and see where like our 200s are. I think that'll be key. All right, so there you go. Your 200, you see I'm zooming in and trying to identify this dark green moving average, which is the 200 simple moving average. When we were looking earlier in the year, this is the beginning of the year, we had a nice pump into the beginning of the year, back test on the 200 exponential. Then we had our yearly high, back test again on the 200 exponential, and then here we had a cross with the 200 simple below the 200 exponential. With that cross, it was expected to have weakness, and if you look, we just maintain higher lower highs after that. So we have our high, lower high, lower high, lower high, and we're technically still lower high energy. So having daily candles that start to close above 1955 would definitely be a good sign, but I want to look for structural highs, and that to me is this time frame right here, July 18th through 19th. We're still sort of in accumulation with gold still, even though some people might have not taken this as seriously as I was. Of course, that's okay. It's hard to buy gold in some places, and it's not the easiest thing to even sell. So I try to be, I was very open and transparent about what I'm personally looking into. And, it's not the most fun asset to be buying and selling if you're getting into physical, especially with somebody like my flow state and the kind of person I am, where I barely have anything in my life. I have a suitcase and a guitar, but if you're somebody with a house and you have a safe and you have all that, you have a long-term plan of sticking to where you are and all of that, there's nothing wrong with having a couple bars of gold if that's what you're into. I'm not trying to make somebody feel like you have to copy me, because my flow state might be totally different than yours. You have to do what's best for you, your family, your investment thesis, your cash flow, your business model, or what you earn at your job, etc. But for me, I've been very transparent. Gold is only going to be 10% of my overall investment portfolio. I'm not looking to be a big player in this stuff. It's just to balance me out a little bit for where we're headed with fiat, And we're no longer in the Jubilee year. We're no longer in the Shemitah. So we are in a different time frame now, and that's where I've shifted my focus onto gold. it's funny, and I'm just going to make this comment really quickly. So many people think that I was like anti-gold for the longest, and I was very transparent. Anyone in this community that was here during my first year of doing the mastermind community, they know I was not accumulating gold because we were in a Shemitah year, and Shemitah year is negative on not necessarily just precious metals, but it's pro USD fiat. When we go into Shemitah here, DXY does very well because it's typically risk off time. So you see in every Shemitah cycle in the beginning, we tend to top out. Again, they start de-risking, and the smart money in the world goes into the cleanest dirty laundry, which is the US dollar. This is why after that moment, we started seeing collapse of so many other types of fiat money. We saw obvious collapse in many pesos, Turkish lira. We saw what has continued in Africa. I mean, you name it, there started to be, the Argentinian peso specifically was something that hit my radar. And I was just like, whoa, like clearly the elite of a place like Argentina or Colombia, they're going to de-risk into USD or gold or other assets, etc. So that call back then in 2021 was on the money to be heavy fiat, to be heavy US dollar. And as a US citizen, that was easy for me. But now that we're out of those years and we're here now, of course, I'm going to adjust according to where we are. You always adjust, right? It'd be like not accepting that AI is the inevitable future. Like you just have to move on, There was a time where we thought credit cards were like a big problem, and now it's the typical way that we pay with a debit card, credit card. It's not weird anymore, but we're always kind of like, it's funny. It's tough to be in my position sometimes because people don't understand that there must be adaptability year by year. And I've been one of the few to really hammer in this concept because of looking at it more esoterically. Again, coming back to the perspective of moon cycles, eclipses, eclipse cycles, Shemitah year, Jubilee, etc. So we're here now. We're moving into the year of the dragon, the year of the X, and I am super bullish on gold. But according to my flow state, I just cannot have much more than about 10% of my overall portfolio. It would bog me down, and I just do not have the setup in the physical to be able to make that happen. So I have my own thesis on it and my own way of going about it, and I hope you develop the same for yourself. Got positioned in, looking pretty good, about 4% up across the board. Not crazy gains, but in the long term, I do see a move up to $2,400 per ounce USD in gold, and even much higher depending on what happens with CBDCs and potential what could happen with BRICS nations and gold-backed currencies. We don't really know how that's going to go. We could speculate, but for me, the esoteric tells me gold should be doing very well in 2024. It should break this triple top structure, and all systems go. So I want to position myself. If we get another correction, I don't think we'll be going much lower than this trend line on the outside. We might have kicked back into this trend line right here, the white trend line at the bottom. You can see we have a hold of support, and the moment we broke below it was the hard correction. Now we kicked back into it. So this could be holding, and this tells me that a correction of around this structural low right here on September 14th, 1900 on the nose, down to maybe let's just call it 1900 and be simple. That's about as good as it should be getting at this point. Going lower than this would only really happen if we had a big crash happen across the board. That would be an isolated black swan to markets. Whilst the black swan we just got last week was for the world stage, moving into war narrative. We saw the same thing actually happen with Ukraine and Russia, and how right after that it was positive for crypto regarding price action. So we have black swans for markets, we have black swans for world events, we have black swans to specifically a part of the market, like we had with the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. It didn't affect Chase, it didn't affect American Express, it didn't affect Wells Fargo, it affected that bank, and the people that were part of it got slaughtered. That's what makes it a black swan. It wasn't expected, it was ritualized, and it affected that particular market. What it did for us, though, was it gave us a crucial date, and it showed us how we could be having more events like that coming soon. Would not be weird. A merger is something that I've talked about in the past, and I just did an interview with Rice Crypto or Rice TVX. Go check it out if you haven't already. And I talk about my theory of not seeing something like a Wells Fargo go down or like a Bank of America go down, but actually what I could anticipate happening would be a breakdown of the... I'm trying to remember what I specifically said because it was on my mind at that time. But if it comes to me, I will make sure to let you know. But something like a Navy Federal or credit unions. Excuse me. I have so many things on my mind. Of course, this happened at the 44-minute mark. 44 minutes of freestyle, and then I have to think about something that I said on an interview. But credit unions, that's what I think would be the next Black Swan ritual specifically to banking. It wouldn't be a thing like JP Morgan or that. Those guys are too big to fail. But anyways, I don't want to jump around to too many theories here. Just stream of consciousness, and I hope you guys find value in these moments of tangent, if you will. So gold looking fine. I shared my idea behind the inverse head and shoulders. Let's quickly look at silver. Silver not buying back as hardcore as we see with gold structurally, but we have a different pattern going on silver, which is this long-term resistance line, which has been in place since pretty much right after the C19 like rocket ship for silver. You see silver dumped hard into $11 and then just broke out in a straight line. And since then, this has been a crucial point of rejection over and over again, even this year. Look in August and look in July. Perfectly rejected at this trend line. So it tells me that if we can break this trend line with a back test as well as get above this point right here, I would say all systems go. So we would need something like this to happen. Back test and then break. And then once we get above this level, which to me, let me zoom out and see what fib level this is on the macro. Okay, it's the 786. That's why. So here you have your all-time... Oh, we have a whole chart to look at. Mamma mia. Okay, we're looking at the monthly on silver, and we have this fib pulled from 1980 down to 1991. Huge amount of data. This almost looks like a crypto chart. And we can see a double top, which is not so great, but coming back into the 0.5 fib area, the C19 crash swiped through the 0.5 fib, but it maintained structure. So we see low, higher low during the C19 crisis. Now we're still just continuing to move up. And that tells me a break above the golden pocket on the next time. It could either initiate a triple top, which happened in gold, which would be one more test back to 47. And by the way, that actually is in more alignment with my thesis. There's been so many people that are perpetuating this idea that we're going to see these major moves in silver because of what gold could do. And it's like, have you not looked at the people who are telling you this information? Like, they sell precious metals or they have referral links to precious metal. Like, they've been telling you the same story every year about $100, $200, $300 an ounce gold and silver, and it's never happened. And why? They need to look at what is esoteric, and they're not doing it. Okay, this is dangerous. This is why we need to talk about the esoteric. Let me reveal it to you really quickly, guys. Silver is the 47th element on the periodic table, and that is your two all-time high double tops that you get on silver per ounce in the US dollar, which is the world reserve currency, printed by the Federal Reserve System, which is private, not tied to government whatsoever, and that is mercurial. This is tied back to Mercury. Money created out of thin air, and the control over commerce and I believe now that you see where I'm coming from with this, I know I don't need to explain this because you guys get it. You get that there's this esoteric code running the market, right? That's how you made it to here. That's what we're doing. That's different. But, I would not be surprised if we got a triple top on silver and then it just held structure while we see a breakout in gold. I'm not here to say that I want that necessarily, but it wouldn't shock me because there's too many people that are anti-crypto or just purely gold, silver bugs. And they've been thinking that they've been brainwashed. They think the same thing over and over and over again every time we get a little pump in one of these assets and there's no price discovery. Silver has not been in price discovery since 1978. Like, what more is there to say? So if you're building positions in this, it's not to become insanely rich, unless you're somebody who lives in one of these countries that your currency is failing, of course. If you live in a country where your currency is absolutely getting slaughtered, then sure. But for the most part, there's better opportunities out there. So keeping it in that 10 to 15% of the overall portfolio is more in alignment with where I'm at. Banking on only metals, especially only physical, not my thesis, not my way of doing it. Especially where we're headed with crypto, blockchain technology, the regulation coming to blockchain, transformation of the stock market getting tokenized. I mean, you name it, right? So it's fun to have a little bit of this stuff and to have it be part of your investment thesis. We see a huge symmetrical triangle that has been coiling up, going on, almost 5,000 days. We're getting pretty much past the 75% of the apex. So this is going to break out soon, and it's more than likely breaking out to the upside. So we can entertain moves into price discovery, but I wouldn't get too caught up in that right now, The people that get into precious metals, you're not really looking for these insane gains. You're looking to protect your wealth preservation. I believe that seems to be the case. So let's move on to, really quickly, we're going to look at the DXY, because we saw what happened with the DXY going off of some prior analysis that I shared. This is mind-boggling how accurate this all was. So we had this trend line in play, multiple rejections on the DXY. We had a breakout above it finally. After all of these rejections coming in, we back tested the outside of it, and I told you, once we get this breakout candle, this thing's going straight to the 0.5 fib. And where did we go? So we're there. We got a rejection, back tested. This was a key line. I should move this up a little bit. You saw I just moved it up a hair, and this shows you a horizontal level that we were getting rejected at. Boom, 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 before moving up, back test. Now, if we get above this 107 range, then it could go fast. It could go to the 108. We could actually watch de-risking happening in the stock market while continuing to see Bitcoin and gold go up. That's kind of where we're at right now. We're in that mode where the speculative tech stocks are bleeding. They're going to continue to get fleeced. We are always going to see the top plays like Apple, Microsoft. They're going to do fine. But there's a lot of shit going on right now, specifically with real estate. Airbnb just changed a law, which was insane what they've decided to do. Anyone who knows about Airbnb could maybe talk about it in the community, but that decision that they made is probably going to really harm their earnings. And when that comes in, there you go. Like, we're going to start to see some of these accommodation companies break down. I mean, woo, what a time to be alive. What a time to be aware. So I think that we could actually see the DXY continue to break out because of de-risking in the stocks, and then still see Bitcoin and precious metals go up. That's just my theory. A big reason why I don't care to invest in stocks at all. I'm purely looking at gold, 10%, and then what I shared with you earlier with my overall portfolio. Now, if we get a correction, holding this level right above the 382 is normal on the DXY, and that would only come with a pump and break of structure for the indices, which I don't see happening. So we have high. We're looking at the Dow Jones. Lower high, rejection. Technically still a lower high. We broke below this key trend line, which we were anticipating to break through, but we got a little bit of a buyback. Remember, we have the FOMC meeting coming up in a couple weeks, so we have room to go up a little bit more, but that does not mean to get ready for a party. We could see the 702 caught as a rejection level. So just keep this in mind, because I want you to look at the similarities. Remember, the NASDAQ and the Dow are not on the same timeline necessarily because of more volatility in tech stocks. You're going to see levels get hit first in the NASDAQ. So what happened? Look at the NASDAQ. We're getting these perfect rejections on this key trend line. We're back below the golden pocket again, and lower highs. We made a lower low comparatively to here. So we're in a downtrend. Okay. So look, we have our high, lower high, low, technical lower low back in September after the end of the Jubilee. If we were to have one more swipe below the 702 with a 2-day or 3-day candle close, this can very quickly go down to this red line. and that could happen fast. So keep this in mind. Even if this would happen, it would bring slight pressure into crypto, but not as much as I think some people might anticipate. This next FOMC meeting is crucial, and it aligns perfectly with that decode that I did on Halloween, on Samhain. Keep this all in mind, family. This was a big rejection to happen on the same day that we saw gold go up, 3%, almost 4% in a single day. So now we're looking at the S&P looking a little more similar to the Dow, where we have yet to gravitate up to this key trend line, but this rejection at the 702 is the same. So look, 702 rejection, Dow Jones, with it in alignment perfectly with that level. So we're not looking amazing. I have been hearing so many people like super confident that we're just going to keep moving up for the indices right now, and I just don't see it. For crypto, for Bitcoin specifically, yes, I see Bitcoin doing what it's done in past cycles, and we're going to get to that in a moment. But yeah, this break below the 618 is a clear downtrend on the start of a reversal on the S&P, or what I would call the end of an automatic rally. High, lower high, big rejection, which broke the lows, lower low, and closes below the 618. This isn't mythology. This is real life. All right. So this is the start of a trend reversal. And typically the way automatic rallies end is you get below the 0.5 fib. That would make the most sense. And if we hold structure magically, staying above this level right here in March, around the time Silicon Valley Bank failed, the 382 is in good posture. So right there, slightly above the 382, it would still keep you in a bull trend overall in the macro. The NASDAQ is just silly, and we know it because look at how the NASDAQ rallied. It looked like a blow-off, like a parabolic advance. Rejection at the 888. This has a lot to give back. We can watch a whole sector in tech just get slammed, and this easily could be brought back down to 13,700. So we're open-minded to that, right? But let's move into what we're most focused on, which is cryptocurrency, Bitcoin specifically. So here we are, family. We made it through the solar eclipse, the second solar eclipse of our solar cycle. Remember, in the last two podcasts, we focused a lot on how Bitcoin specifically acts around this second solar eclipse of the solar cycle. And in the past 3 iterations, we watched Bitcoin move up for the following 50 to 60 days, even considering the black swan that happened in March of 2020, the C19 crash. And in all iterations, we saw Bitcoin trade higher on the following lunar eclipse compared to the daily close of the solar eclipse. So considering that Bitcoin closed at 26,850 yesterday, we could assume we'll be closing over 27,000 during the lunar eclipse on October 28th to 29th, just a couple weeks away, which is leading right into the 44th week of the year that we spoke about earlier. Now, to be really precise, we can see that every single second solar eclipse of the solar cycle closed slightly in the red. So yesterday we closed slightly in the red. We're going to go all the way back to 2012 if my charts can load. And we're going to see the second solar eclipse of the solar cycle close slightly in the red in November. We're going to go over to this cycle. We're going to see second solar eclipse slightly in the red on that eclipse. And the same thing even goes for this December timeframe in 2019, second solar eclipse slightly in the red, looking almost identical to the way it looked this time around. Now, back in 2012, you're going to see how it moved after, and about 3 trading days after this slight red close on the solar eclipse, we moved up with a pretty decent green candle. Now we're going to go over to this solar eclipse. Remember the pattern. We closed red on the day, slightly red on the day of the solar eclipse. Then a couple days, boom, popped right up after. Now we have a little bit of an anomaly. We have our second solar eclipse. We did move up over the next 3 days, but it was kind of a fake out, which led to a short-term bear trap, So we have all 3 iterations going up immediately after the solar eclipse, looking similar on their closure on the day of the solar eclipse. With the recent one, we could see it looks almost identical. Then after here, you have about 8 trading days after our solar eclipse, we get this bear trap. All right. So we never went lower, though, than the lows that we got before the solar eclipse. I want to make a note of that because now we're going to go to today. And we know that the lows that came in right before the solar eclipse were right here around the $26,200 level, which would be comparative to this idea. 8 days later, it takes you to October 22nd. And that is right around the first quarter moon, which is coming up in a week. And this is all really important because this is a weekend where crypto would obviously be trading alone. So I'd look to Friday the 20th or October 23rd, which would be the following Monday. Now, that's perfect because we already decoded October 23rd earlier, and that being the day that leaves 69 days left in the year. So remember, 10/23 leaves 69 days in the year. Remember how Bitcoin's all-time high is $69,000. Bitcoin was created by Satoshi Nakamoto. That is Saturn is 69 by the code. So this made me consider taking from the day Bitcoin hit $69,000 back on November 10th of 2021. And I'm back at this time frame now, and I wanted to look at these dates a little bit closer, and right around the same time frame, October 21st, coming up very soon, the day of our first quarter moon, pretty much putting us in the same time frame of days measured after the solar eclipse that we got from the past iteration of this example in December of 2019. You see how we're using this ripple effect of time? Well, I looked at the comparison of dates, and it's pretty crazy that we have 1 year, 11 months, and 11 days apart from the day Bitcoin hit 69,000 all-time high. And notice how October 21st has an 11-date numerology. That's a lot of 11s. And what makes this very special is the fact that these are exactly 710 days apart. That becomes 71 in the rules of numerology before reduction. And October 21st is the day leaving 71 days in the year. Now, to go even deeper, 71 is your 20th prime number. And this November 10th of this year is 20 days after October 21st. This would be the 2-year anniversary of Bitcoin's all-time high. So it's wild how 2 years is exactly 730 days, 73 with the rules of numerology. That would be the 21st prime number. 21 ties you right back to Saturn equals 21. Moments ago, I mentioned to consider the Friday before the first quarter moon, to consider the 20th. And you can see how these are 21 days before the second anniversary of Bitcoin's all-time high. It's amazing. All right. This Thursday that's happening before, you get this 72 date numerology, and the day of October 20th is the day leaving 72 days in the year. That ties perfectly back to Bitcoin equals 72 by the code. And this is 21 days before Bitcoin's 2-year anniversary of its all-time high. 21 ties back to, as I said, Saturn. 21. Bitcoin has 21 million Bitcoin in supply. So just consider, family. Now, considering a little longer term, earlier I spoke about 50 to 60 days after the solar eclipse, and that being a time frame that we tend to move up. All right. So we've seen in all 3 iterations, 50 to 60 days after, we have a recovery energy for Bitcoin. Well, that would take us between December 3rd and December 13th. Remember that date I was talking about earlier? That would be 60 days exactly after, as you can see. December 13th. And it lands on a Wednesday, which is the day of Mercury. And we know Mercury is coded into Bitcoin as well. Mercury equals 23. Bitcoin equals 23. So something to keep in mind about December 13th, again, even based on prior price action from Bitcoin. So we're tying in everything today. So this could be the time frame that I anticipate Bitcoin to be trading back at 31 to 32K, right around December 3rd through December 13th. It should be approaching yearly highs. This, we could also actually consider that Bitcoin could be back into 30K within the month of November. and it would be likely to see the start of that breakout this month. So that's why I decided to buy some Bitcoin today, because we can see in all past iterations that a couple days after Bitcoin moves up, and even 8 days after, if we had a correction, we still move up into the upcoming full moon or the upcoming lunar eclipse. So that gives us between today and based on historic price action, a little bit later into the month, around the third week of October or so, to get positioned on what could be the best final buying opportunities for Bitcoin, because we don't see any larger corrections after that. These lows that are planted in right here in September are about as low as we've seen ever, based in these cycles, these patterns. And can the pattern break this time around? Sure. Why not? But based on the decoupling that I've seen in Bitcoin versus the indices, and also this decoupling that I just watched happen over the last 2 to 3 weeks in precious metals, it's a sign that everything is being balanced out. Again, this comes back to Libra, the scales. And as it balances out, the things that have gained more have more to give back, and the things that haven't gained as much have opportunity to grow. And Bitcoin is one of those things. And now it makes so much sense why they're preparing for a Bitcoin ETF soon. That could be a huge catalyst, as you're all aware. That's very exoteric, though, and we try to stay away from topics like that unless it's needed. So we're just going to do some traditional TA really quickly. Of course, we had this one trend line that was kicking in that was a structural support until the bigger correction on August 17th. Got up to it, rejected, again rejected, then a kickback. We could probably go ahead and just take that up and assume it's still perfectly in alignment with this back test we just got. So we have one thing that's showing us a back test right around the solar eclipse. We're more than likely to start recovering off of any prior corrections. But if we were to do more traditional analysis, we're going to go to the weekly. We're going to turn off all of the noise and just pull up some of our moving averages. And we can see Bitcoin has been perfectly supported on the 200 exponential on the weekly. I do not think we should be closing lower than that based on everything I just told you before. And the fact that we're getting a positive slope on the 55 simple moving average on the weekly is a very good sign as well. If we were to have, for whatever reason, a deeper correction, it should most likely be caught on this moving average, which tells me not going lower than the Silicon Valley day crash, holding 25, 24K. Regardless of what happens. Okay, so then we're going to look at the 3-day really quickly. Actually, let me get to the weekly and look at the EMAs, see if we have anything telling us a story. And we're coiling up. All 3 EMAs are pretty much sitting where we're at right now. It would be good to get back above the 21 exponential, ideally, just to back above 27,500. Holding these in a more neutral state, but keeping them in a bullish posture. Also a little bit of a dip down, slightly below bullish control on the RSI, so nothing crazy going on here. Bitcoin is just neutral. It's balancing. It's getting ready for its next move. So we're looking at the 3-day. We've started to get slightly back above, we're getting back into the EMA band after we broke down below the EMA band in August. That now we flipped into a more bearish posture with the 34 above the 13 EMA. We would, of course, like to get back above that, which tells me that any 3-day closes above 28K will be a quick recovery into 31K. So keep that in mind. Now, with today's 3-day close potentially being in the green, more likely to be in the green, anything above 27,000 for Bitcoin, we would have this RSI tick back into about 49, almost into 50, heading into bullish control. That's very good. And we could see MACD is doing fine. Not quite neutral just yet, but we've been chugging along this 25,000 to 30,000 area now for months. Bitcoin is building a ton of support in this area, which tells me that in the next bull run, if Bitcoin's going to get above the 70, 80, 90K range, maybe even a 6 figures, that 30,000 would be an area to consider being the low, whilst in the past cycle, it was recently just 15, about 100% more. Any Bitcoin that was below that 20,000 level that we got before the Silicon Valley crash, that was a gift. And that's no different looking in the chart structure than what we've seen in prior iterations of the selling climax. So now you can see the selling climax looks very similar to the one we had in 2018, which also looks very similar to the ones that we had of this double bottom in 2015. And even in this one that we got right here in November, Okay, so look, November of 2011, and then we have an automatic rally, just like here. November of 2022, then we have an automatic rally. It's just rinse, repeat cycles, even going back to 2012. Okay, so we're looking at the 3-day, getting back above and having this band flip bullish where the 13 is above the 21, above the 34 would be ideal. In the meantime, we're just building more structure. We're above the 200 simple moving average. That's nice to see, but rejections on the 55 3-day is a signal. We used to hold that as a support, and now we broke below it. So that's one negative thing I could say about Bitcoin at this time. I don't like that. But the weekly still looks encouraging. And we know we're in a very volatile asset that's ran by gematria, numerology, astrology, so we can't take all these technicals at face value. We have to be open-minded to the big picture. All right, looking at the daily, we've backtested the 55 after rejections on the 55, which is telling me something to consider. We had a wolf cross here, bigger dump. Now we've had a wolf cross in the other direction, but we can't get back above that 200 simple moving average. So that 200 simple moving average is in alignment with the weekly and 3-day analysis I just shared, which is Bitcoin getting back above 28K. Once Bitcoin gets back above 28K, we should be on the move to 31, etc. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. 1 second. Okay. So, yep, 28K is the line to break. We can see a rejection over here, and we could see these recent rejections over here leading into the solar eclipse. Now, I don't know if we can get above it by the lunar eclipse, but at least we've seen 1 month after Bitcoin gets out of the second solar eclipse of the solar cycle, we start to break any higher structure. So that would be more my time frame. Let's just call it moving into the month of November. All right, family, let's move on to Ethereum. We've kind of exhausted all of the ideas here. Now, ETH has effectively started to break down into a lower low than the prior lows on September 11th. We're sort of in a buying energy now. So for me, I'm going to start accumulating this over the next maybe 3 to 4 days, depending on how Bitcoin goes. Of course, Bitcoin stealing dominance right now means that if Bitcoin was to mimic the 2019 cycle, where we moved down 8 days after the solar eclipse, well, if we were to see like a 7 or 8% correction on Bitcoin, we could see a 14, maybe even 20% correction on ETH. So just keep that in mind. That's a little drastic. I don't know if I could really, anticipate anything deeper than the March 10th crash, but let's pull up some fibs and see what's going on. Okay. Yeah, so we're just squirreling around the 382. We've gotten multiple lower high rejections. The 200s are sitting below, above us now. That's not the greatest thing to see. And you see a clean rejection on the 200 200 exponential moving average on this twin tower formation. So yeah, getting back above the 200 exponential is key. Ideally above the 200 simple though, which is sitting at 1800. We might not see that for some time, family, just because we're in the Bitcoin mode right now. I've talked about this in the past. So yeah, buying time now for ETH, pretty much anything below this 382 and above this 236. I know that gives a huge range, but that's what dollar cost averaging is for. You know, if we were to see a deeper correction on ETH, it would be surprising though to see it going below this March 10th level. Anything's possible in the matrix, especially when Bitcoin dominance is breaking into new yearly highs, which is the case right now. So yeah, I'm going to keep this short and sweet on Ethereum. What I would like to see is buyback above this 200 simple moving average, which would be about 1800. That would give a sign of confidence, considering that was a prior support level. And in the meantime, anything below this 1600 level is pretty solid. We can see that was the rejection levels for a while. Then we back tested it over here in June. And then since it has flipped again as a resistance, anything below resistance is buying opportunity. You know, not financial advice. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just speaking my truth. Let's go to XRP. Anything below 50 cent XRP is solid in my opinion. We saw this move down to about 45 cents. That's good enough. If we do get any larger corrections, I could entertain a 42 cent XRP. We'll see how that goes, but we have to consider the 236 fib. It's a technical level. That 45-cent level has been wicked into several times on many exchanges. That's a buy wall, right? So don't get greedy. That's the words of wisdom here. There's really no difference between accumulating one day when it's 47, then accumulating one day when it's 46, and then accumulating another day when it's 44. It's all just adding up to build a position. Now, entertaining things that are lower than 41 is hard right now, and I've given enough supported analysis to share why. One of the big reasons is this key blue trend line that goes back since the C19 crash, the back test. This is your your Ripple SEC case dump, selling climax lows, and then we just continue to rally on top of it. So if we're going to get a bigger correction, it's this key trend line, which 42, 43, doesn't matter to me. Any of that is opportunity, but I would not play around in the sub 50 cent level if you are somebody that's looking to put larger percentages in your portfolio. If you're somebody who has no care to put any XRP in your portfolio at all, disregard, doesn't really matter. But for the people that are more into this for the long game, you must realize there really is not a big difference between current levels and 41 cents or 40 cents. It's splitting hairs here. And I want to get people to be better investors, which means you have to stop getting lost in the sauce over the minutia and zoom out and look at the big picture. We're below all of the key moving averages right now in the daily. Continual lower highs. We know this was all a big show back here because look at where we're trading at, equally as low as we were the days before Ripple or XRP got clarity as non-security. So this is all bread and circus. It's all another day in the matrix. Anything below 53 cents has been continued to be smacked down. We had a short moment above it. We're right back below it. So this is all buying opportunities. Again, that's what's making me bullish on XRP moving into the year of the X. If it's buying opportunities, that's when I'm excited. We always operate the opposite of the herd, right? The herd was crucifying me up here when I was saying that I was de-risking at 85, at 83, 86, 89 cents. Well, we see how that went. It's not an I told you so moment. It's just I was focused on my investment thesis and my trading plan. I don't let anyone else get in the way of that. I know what I'm here to do. I must execute when the market shows up at my levels. That's how you become a better investor, not influenced by everyone else's opinion. That's how you get led to the slaughter. So we're moving over to Cronos right now, an exchange that crypto.com. Most of you know about it. This asset has been choppy AF lately. I haven't looked at this chart in some time, so it's going to be fun today to get into this. Oh, okay. Yeah, we are back at C19 levels pretty much. So this was your C19 crash. By the way, we're looking at Cronos tied to Saturn. Blue and white symbolism in the logo. Again, Israel. We can see a lot of the symbolism inside of the Cronos logo kind of looks like hammerheads, which that comes back to Thor's hammer. I'm sure we could decode this enough, but doesn't really hold too much weight when you're looking at a chart that looks like this, right? So this is not the greatest looking thing. I mean, look at the all-time high was $119, right? Is that literally 119? Yeah. It like perfectly got up to 911, which is what fucking Terra Luna did. Terra Luna had like the same exact thing. And then FTX crashed around 11.9, right around that solar eclipse, or lunar eclipse, excuse me. So this thing has had a 96% correction. That's about as deep as they tend to go, but we're below the backup phase lows. So if we go back to the last cycle, everything had a spring. Then everything went into a SOS, then everything went into a backup phase. This thing is trading below backup phase and it's getting rejected. So that's not a sign of strength. That's a huge sign of weakness. Breaking below backup. That would be like if Bitcoin today was trading below $7,000, but Bitcoin's at $27,000. You see the issue here? So that would be like if I was to compare. This is the C19 crash and we're trading pretty much right back in those V-shaped recovery areas. It's again a sign of weakness. This is a sign of retail is the only guys left holding this thing. My whole thesis on crypto.com was to just use maybe their debit card once in a while. That was kind of fun for some time. They have a great referral program, at least they did. They started to change that up, which made everything quite salty for the people that were in it in the prior, referral program. They had a wild staking rewards program that they introduced. Just had too many things going on. I think one thing we could learn from Kronos is not necessarily just something specifically to crypto exchanges, but just as businessmen, like people that are into business. I'll give you some words of wisdom, okay? Don't try doing so many things. Just get good at something and share that with the world. This is preparation for the 2024 project that I'm going to launch. It's some words of wisdom that people need to hear. Like, if you believe being a jack of all trades is going to help you in life, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Your purpose in life, if there is one outside of just being alive and living, is finding something that feels like it makes you present. This is why I say there is no purpose of life. Life is the purpose. Purpose is the process, and process is the now. Well, when that makes sense to you, you could finally connect the dots on where you're at versus where you would like to be. And this is an important thing to think about, how too many people that are in their process of getting started with something, they end up doing what Kronos did, where they offer all this really cool stuff. They overpromise, they give everyone, the kitchen sink, and then they can't, it's not sustainable, it's a crash and burn effect. And I think that's what happened with this exchange. They just started offering way too many altcoins. They were offering coins tied to a fucking soccer teams. Like, it's a scam. 90% of the shit they were holding is just it's bull. They were doing way too many things. That's what made them what looks like they're in the process of failing. So crypto.com is fun to use once in a while, but remember the truth of truths. You must realize that all exchanges are good for is purchasing or selling. Then when you are not doing that, you want to put those private keys on a hardware wallet and you be a custodian of your own private keys. That's important. So any of these exchanges, they're all similar in many ways, and don't trust holding your crypto on them for long periods of time. I'm going to pull up the volume signature real quick, and yeah, no volume. Dog shit. Lots of volume here in this backup phase, which is probably from the company itself buying their own fucking project. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of case on this company too. I believe it's also a Chinese company, so maybe they don't have to deal with those similar regulations. But anywho, quick, short analysis on this. 96% correction. This ain't looking so great. I'm going to pull up a fib right here and see where this 161... Oh, no. Okay, should I be nice? I think I'm going to put it there. This is bad. Okay, I'm going to delete this to just show you guys what I'm doing right now. So I'm pulling a bearish fib from this level right here. This was also the rejection level, which sent us another leg lower. And that's a very key level to do the bearish fib. Okay, that helps. We've gotten to this 1618 target as of now. Now I need to show you the death zone target, which is what I was showing you before, which is about here. That's lower than the C9. That's like back where this thing started. So if this thing wants to continue to mosey on down to Hades, 2 cents is your target. But we already hit this key target right here. You see, when we finished the run, we came back into this level, got rejected twice. And this M pattern played out pretty much perfectly to the 1618. And that's where we've been locally trading. So yeah, but the def zone target is somewhere here because it's the same structure. You see, support, break, come back up, rejection, and then you started making lower lows. So that's why we need to entertain this 2 cent level. That's an additional, 80% correction from where we are now? Okay, 60%. Yeah, no good. Yeah. So there it is. I'm going to go ahead and put this here, and then I'm going to go ahead and be kind and put it here because this double bottom around the C19 crash and the level it was at before it. And there's your buy zone between just 2 cents, anything in the 2 cent range. That is extremely dramatic to the downside. And I suppose if it was to get that low, the company would probably be entering a state of bankruptcy, or they'd be failing. Because I know they hold a lot of their own shit. It's similar to Binance in that way. No retail cares about this thing anymore. Okay, so there it is. I'm going to move on. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't trust any exchange to keep large amounts of crypto on. Be a custodian of your own private keys. You've heard it before many times. Be a wolf amongst sheep. Okay, we're looking at ELF, which has a logo that is very similar to Cardano in a strange way. Okay, we have a ton of data on this thing, so this is cool. We could look at this thing launched back at the worst time ever. They launched at the end of alt season in 2018, so that's why this chart looks so fucked. I'm going to pull a very long-term fib. We could see it did what everything else did, which is it hit its macro selling climax at the C19 crash. Then it came up and did an automatic rally perfectly into the golden pocket, rejected below it, and now it's actually had a little decent rally since the end of 2022. It's in a okay, yeah, this is pretty nice. Let me look really quickly what XRP has done since November 2022, or the end of the year. Yeah, so like kind of close. It's just the ELF chart looks better, actually. Fuck, but they're eerily similar. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so you have your all-time high. This is the XRP chart, by the way. All-time high in January 2018. We're going to zoom out. All-time high in January 2018. Big sell-off. Your absolute lows were on March 2020, C19 crash. Big sell-off, lows, March, C19 crash. Automatic rally coming up into the golden pocket. And then here we have automatic rally, which also came up into the golden pocket. Rejection off. Rejection off, bottoming in November, bottoming in Q4, and then a rally. We've hit into the golden pocket range effectively, and this one did a little bit better. This is like the same fucking chart. What is this project? What's its market cap? Yeah, this coin market cap has really dropped the ball. I don't like using this website anymore. CoinGecko. Hey, just tell me the ranking. Don't make it difficult for us. Okay, ELF coin, 184. Okay, so it's pretty high up there. Yeah. All right. Very interesting chart, but it's been on price discovery to the downside. So let's talk real talk here. Price discovery to the downside. It has yet to break all-time highs going back to 2018. This is your high, your lower high, and effectively still in a lower high. And if we were to break 25 cents to the downside, this would probably not look so strong. And I would assume pulled back to the 236 is in the cards. But because of the timing of the cycle and everything, maybe 26 cents holds. Like even if we do come down a little bit and Bitcoin dominance continues to rise and these more speculative plays just get drained out, this could continue to hold 26 cents. And then, you're pretty much looking at there to next all-time high is about a 10x. So, but yeah, I don't think I've ever looked at this chart before. It's just wild how it has a macro Wyckoff playing out. I just can't be confident about what I just said because we don't have any data before the 2018 top. It was just launched it was launched at the wrong time, to be honest. This we see often in the coins that were created in like November or December of 2020. They never had the C19 crash experience. And then the Federal Reserve was printing a fuck ton of money and everything just went up in a straight line. Like it benefited. It was launched at the right place at the right time. But you look at a lot of those same coins today and they're lower than that, right? So again, speculative altcoins, they're an interesting game, but it's a gambling casino and you want to make sure you're in and out when things get a little greedy. So yeah, interesting chart. The only thing I could say is not holding the 26 cent level could dump down pretty quickly into the 382. But since we already had effectively come down into 236 on the macro, this AR is finished here. So this could hold structure. The only thing is sometimes we have Wyckoff schematics that have a spring, or have a double bottom. So just keep that in mind. But if we look back at the C19 era and we go up to where we are today, it's 350% up. That's not bad. We have some coins like the chart I just looked at a moment ago, Kronos, is effectively trading like 10% up from the C19 crisis. This is looking a little better. Let's look at Bitcoin really quickly, just for a comparison. We have from the same area up to where we are today, Bitcoin is about 350% up. So yeah, I mean, this altcoin is not even doing that great based off of that metric, because it's Bitcoin compared to a speculative alt. It should have way more ROI opportunity, and it doesn't. So yeah, be careful with this kind of stuff, family, but interesting chart nonetheless. Let's go to Near Protocol. Ooh, no. Near Protocol, you have taken a dump. All right, so we looked at this coin before. We had a fib pulled from the all-time high effectively down to the swing low selling climax at the end of 2022, which everything kind of went to the same level. Now we had a little bit of a buyback, but rejection on the 236 multiple times, and then a break of lows. And then now lately we've gone even lower. And then I had this level mapped out here of 76 cents. I guess that's where I pulled a fib in the last time I looked at this and determined that's where we're headed. So let me look at a trend line really quickly because it's pretty obvious. We have one. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. We're just going to bring it up to right here. Double click. Remove this extension. And you're going to see once we broke below, we got rejected, and now we're continuing rejections. So if we were to look at the absolute bottom of this would be coming into 2024, where this thing could pierce down to that level by then, if it wants to keep following this pattern. Now, one thing to note, if we do that, and let's just say we break above it, back test it, and then we start to recover some of these levels, your confidence would build back above $1. Anytime we could break this level right here that we're looking at, $1.20 to be exact. And that could be your overall selling climax totally. So you'd have your buying climax up here, double top, and then your selling climax down here, which leads to an automatic rally in the next cycle. So what that means in plain English is if you're accumulating around this area and you're taking it to here, it's about almost a 10x, the long term. Actually, let me adjust this to be even more accurate, because if it was to go down to here, yeah, that's the same pretty much. I mean, damn, that would be, about a 10x. And we would get worried, though, approaching these levels, because that's where the project launched. Wow, and this is a perfect example of what I was talking about a project that was launched after the C19 crash. I just said this moments ago, a project that was launched after the C19 crash, and it was just in the right place at the right time, where it got to ride the wave of alt season forever, like everything else. Now you look at where it's trading at compared to the launch, and it's right back at the same prices. So what are we at, a 98% loss now? Okay, yeah, 95. So we're there. There's room to go, though. I think this thing could effectively get to 80 cents again. Keep that in mind. So I'm going to wrap this up here, family. I hope you all enjoyed today's podcast, an hour and a half long, packed with gnosis. I know I had some moments where we went into tangents of what I believe could be very important gems to take note of and apply, hopefully strengthening your overall investment thesis. But I appreciate and love every single one of you. I'll continue to give short updates as needed. Like I said, I've already took action on de-risking my alts that were purposefully at a loss for tax loss harvesting, and I'm building a Bitcoin position as we speak. Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP are on my radar in the short term to accumulate as much as I can to have that balanced portfolio that I shared, and then the venture capital bag I'll add to depending on what happens over the next couple weeks, months, etc. So I appreciate every single one of you. Wishing you all a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day in the Matrix. Much love, family.